senior project night. Except I didn't clean my whiteboard really. But it's getting pretty hard to get it clean.
Yeah, mine's about to need a serious clean.
It's not a real whiteboard.
Is it the board you buy from Lowe's?
It's the shower wall. Yeah.
I remember when everybody, because I'm old, was switching over from chalkboards to whiteboards, and of course schools didn't always have money to switch over, but they couldn't do anything with those chalkboards anymore. I actually taught in a room for a while. Part of the year we had chalkboards, and then we got a grant to buy the shower wall stuff, so we had half chalkboards and half shower wall.
That's so. I can't remember when I taught at Mountain View. I definitely had chalkboard. I don't remember if I had whiteboard or not. You know.
Do you have a timer for me?
Yeah. You just want to like walk around with it?
No, I'm just gonna sit here.
Oh, okay. I was like, sure.
You have a timer?
I do. We should have. I meant to talk to you guys this week about wearing your Bear Ambassador shirts and your name tags to this, but
Dang it.
it's all here, but I don't have backs on the name tags, so I didn't put magnets on them.
Just put it there by shared force and
Yeah.
hot glue to it, yeah. And then just flip it to the neck of your shirt.
Yeah, you guys should have been wearing your ambassador polo. But you get to wear a t-shirt instead, so that's more comfy. Although the polos are right here in the room.
346.
You want me to just like go track down the people that I know are their ambassadors and use their
You can ask them if they want to wear their shirt. But, I mean, it might not look great. It's been folded up in box. I mean, they're not wadded, but they may not be. We'll see. I mean, it's that material.
I will sprint down to the mouth hole.
You can just ask them if they would rather wear them. Totally up to them.
I'm still gonna sprint down to the mouth hole because that's where they're all at.
Do it. Do it, sister. You got plenty of time.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay.
101 is mine the right place? Yeah.
Yeah,
101.
right, please?
All right. Just find where Chromebook is.
Or you could move the Chromebook to where you would rather view from.
I'm not that particular. I'll just get over here out of the way.
In fact, as far as that goes, we'll leave one doubled up in case there's a couple or something, but probably nobody wants to be this close.
That'll be the last one taken, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, especially because Zeppelin's coming, so his will be a little louder, so up front and not be as comfortable.
Well, oddly, I find the desks migrate forward.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they move toward the front. You would think kids would move the desks back, but they
People
actually
just like scooting up and then they, somehow it just gets.
yeah, when they get up or whatever, but they just creep towards the front of the room. And typically I move them a lot, but sharing classrooms
You
is
don't
so
move as much.
weird. I don't move anything. I just get in here, I get what I absolutely have to do done, and then I leave again. I just feel like I'm a
Hello.
back.
How are ya?
Come on in. Okay.
Do we have a sign-in sheet?
You won't need one.
They won't need one?
No, because when they log in as a judge, it will
Clock's ticking.
it'll clock.
There you go. What are you doing?
She's my co-host.
I'm not doing anything.
So I can't make fun of them then?
No.
Well, you can.
You can, that's always an option.
Just be aware you're being recorded.
Oh, yeah.
We're live streaming already. And the microphone's at the front of the room.
Hello.
Yeah, here's
Good to bear in mind.
yes. Yeah, that
See,
would
that's why
probably
I'm
be
as far away from it as I can find.
I think I just shut mine off.
It'll come back. If you totally jack it up, I know how to get it back in there.
Okay.
So it'll be okay. It's kind of like what I've been telling the kids all week. You really can't mess this up. Try as you may. surprise. Well, I do now. Yes. Coming to check on me? What does she want? That's what I figured you were coming for. What size is she? I told him I meant to tell him all week long, but man, I get my brain gets overridden by, well, they're ladies and well, you know, I should have, like I said, I should have thought of it, but all I've been thinking about those FAA exams.
No worries. I'm here.
It's bouncing. This is the only weird room, but I think it'll be fine.
Our poll is in here.
Now, there are ladies and gents, so what size?
Take a medium.
Ladies.
That's what ladies means is weird.
Yeah.
And a weird fit for some of the, yeah.
Feel that, or at least that's what I call it. Feel that. Oh, are we putting them on? I am. Is that what we're doing? Yeah, but if you just
Only if
take
you
off
want
the
to.
jacket, you can put it on over your shirt and then kind of
Oh.
like. I just wear my shirt underneath. Oh, yeah. It'll hold my name tag on better because my other one I have a teacup under.
Nicole?
So it like connects to both. Yeah.
We're used to you talking.
No. It's really like, this is my everyday.
Yep.
I would have had your guys' name tags, but I just didn't even think about it. They are printed, but they don't have a magnet on the back of them. And I could quickly stick a magnet on the back of them, but they are in the CTE. Because that's
Oh, yeah.
the,
I thought she threw her shirt on upside down.
that's the constant issue of having two classrooms. Whatever you need is always in the other one.
Yeah.
And yours are way in the other one.
Yeah.
When I had two, it was just across the hall.
It goes across the hall, I go get the magnets.
A lot of room in here.
Move it in? Yeah, you'll enjoy it.
The parents-
It's weird. It's only like 8 or 10 square feet bigger, but because of the dimensional layout, it just is
Feels
more.
bigger.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was told I get a polo.
Oh, yeah. Medium? Are you think? Medium?
Yeah.
Medium ladies?
I don't know.
Fit nice and tight under your feet.
It's neat. Yeah.
Yes. Making my animals look sweet. Very good. Now y'all be looking sharp.
I know.
I just wanna know when I get a name tag that actually says.
I make you one whenever you want. You just
Well,
put the
you know,
word out.
Nick was supposed to take care of that,
Oh,
and.
Well, and
$10 a year.
to be honest with you, it's possible that he emailed me and I just never did it.
Well, whenever you wanna make another bet.
I'll make you one.
Name tag would be nice.
Tell you what I'll
It's
do.
always fun. I was gonna go to something and my husband was like, are you gonna need like a name tag for that? And I'm like, I'll bring one from Oklahoma. I got two of those.
I think it's gonna be quickly moot because with the key card door keys
Yeah.
we're moving to, we'll have to go back to landing, have the name tag on one side and a key card on the other.
Swipe.
But I will not wear lanyard around my neck. I cannot do it. It drives me crazy. I don't like it.
Mine hanging on my pocket. Cause yeah, over my head is not.
So, oh, my name tag's not. I'm not even wearing my name tag tonight. Cause I didn't think about that.
Nobody's gonna know who you are, Mr. Hunt.
Yeah, you know, I think I'm good at it. What I'm gonna do, Ms. Mickle, is I'm gonna put this Post-it on my backpack. Cause I cannot forget.
Are we
6 minutes.
Yeah.
I was talking. You can just chill. Everybody know how to get in? No, it looks like you pulled it off.
I
You
got
can
it.
submit anytime, and then you can see her content if you want to be able to see her paper and whatever.
Oh, that's right.
The papers are online.
Everything's online.
Okay. How do you,
So when you click there, it should just come to life. If it doesn't, I can get you.
Told you right
After
next
the
door.
last
Yep.
bell.
So your judge ID and the project ID will be in your little packet there.
yes, sir, thank you.
You are welcome. And then there'll be kind of a little web page it'll just take you to where you can see everything that Ms. Griffiths has put up there. I forgot about those web pages.
How do you make your letters go in? I pushed 3 and nothing happened.
Okay, tab down.
That's a tab, yes.
Let's say 2423. Oh, this one. See, some, my laptops are touchscreen, but I don't know if these are all mine. I think they are.
Oh, here.
Yeah, you can mouse or touch, whatever. Pickle your pants.
Well, because it wasn't touchscreen.
I have no idea. This was kind of an accident. So when they ordered mine, Andrew said he was on the phone with the company, and they said, hey, for X number of dollars, you can get, instead of the 13.25 inch screen, you can get the 14 or whatever. And he was like, oh yeah, that's in the budget. So they said, okay, no talk of it being a touchscreen. We found that out when we got here. So,
You know what, sometimes those are lucky accidents.
well, it's a matter of how you personally feel about it. I don't. The kids haven't abused them, and they're working out. So, and there are times when it's convenient to be able to just tap what you're doing.
Are they still in here? Can they still in here?
I think those go with Jerry. Because there's just a handful of Chromebooks in the CTE building, and I think those go to me. I want to say Jerry might take those.
Well,
There's the research.
I would think.
And that may be the logic behind it. I don't
Yep.
really know. Natalie, is there anybody you're expecting that we need to try to hold out for? Okay. Always like to ask, just in case. I hate to shut the door on grandma or something. Well, like I know Mason Owen's presenting later, and his poor mama is literally as far as you can get. She's all the way down at the end of the annex on the presentation before his. And I told Josh this morning, 'cause he said, can you find out where this room is? And I looked it up, and I was like, oh, well, I'm hosting in Mason's room. I can hold it until she gets there. Judging? Grab you a Chromebook. You can sit where the Chromebook is, but you can also just move it to wherever you want to be. That's fine too. And if you click, it should wake up.
Don't hit the power button.
Don't hit the power button like Miss Tilly did. You can. It's just a longer path. You already have your new tab? No, the fair investor new tab. I don't have one for you. Well, I'll make it. Well, I couldn't have given it to you. Maybe I didn't make them all. Maybe I just made as many of them as I could in one day. And that's what it is. Yeah, it's discrimination. Really, I have an axe to grind it through mothers, really what it is. You know, because she's constantly subbing for me and doing a great job.
And
creepy little Stepford Wives thing going on out there. All the doors are like swinging shut at exactly the same time. All right, it is essentially 4 o'clock. So, let me get you your clicker. Oh, and you probably want to clip that mic on you.
This, where do I give you clicker at? Right here? Do I click it on there?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I did not understand what you and I were.
It's right there, good?
Here, I'm gonna move.
Okay.
I'm actually gonna drop it first. Let's put it right on your pocket.
Okay.
I think that will be better. There you go. Now, right now, this isn't clicking because it's not on the presentation, but it will. That'll go to your next slide.
Okay.
That'll go backwards if you need to. If you accidentally mess up and hit that button, it's just a laser. Just don't hit any of these people in the eye.
Yeah.
If you accidentally hit this one, it'll go black screen. But if you hit it again, it'll come right back.
Okay.
Okay.
Are my judges ready? When I was a young girl, my mother worked in a nursing home. So this means that I got to talk to many of the different residents. And this means that they were in many different wings. So I got to talk to the dementia unit, or even the ones that didn't have dementia. I talked to them about many different things, such as the food and the activities. And this is really what led me to wanting to do more research about connecting with our local residents. Hello, my name is Natalie Griffiths, and this is my senior project. Many of you may ask, why choose a nursing home? And this has a very simple answer, because long-term care is very beneficial, long-term care is very beneficial for the residents because it opens up many opportunities for them to socialize with many people their own age. And it is not only beneficial for the residents, but it is also very beneficial for the family members. As hard as this may sound, but the family members, they also have things that they need to do, so they may not have the time or the necessity to take care of their aging grandparent or their parent. And it is also very beneficial when administering medication. So you know that your loved one always has their medication on the right time, or that they always have healthy diet plans according to what they need in their nutrients. Many of you may ask how to choose a good nursing home, and this also has a very simple answer. Go to the Medicare website, and there's a 5-star rating system, and this talks about many of the different long-term care units or nursing homes in your area, or it talks about the food and activities that go along with it. And it has many different comments and things as such from people who have lived in the nursing home or family members who have had experience there. Many people say that the biggest thing would be to visit the location and just look around, talk to the administration. Always try the food, because if you don't like the food, they won't like the food. And if you see any residents walking around in the hallways, to always just look at their hair to see if it's brushed, to see if they're groomed correctly, and just speak to them about the things that are going on. Because if you need any real feedback, you're going to get it from them, because they're the ones living there. I would say that personally the biggest thing is to always allow the family member to have a say, since they are the ones living there, that they should be able to choose or at least have a say of like where they're living at. Elderly mental illness in nursing homes, a large part makes up for it in nursing homes, but this does not mean that everyone has a mental illness. All you have to do is just speak to the ombudsman inside of a nursing home, and they just advocate for the residents of the nursing home. So if they don't like the food or the activities within the nursing home, then they can just go talk to the ombudsman and they will advocate for them. Or the social workers, which work as ombudsmen, but they also provide therapy, mental therapy for the residents inside the nursing home. Over 50 million people suffer from dementia, and over 50 million people suffer from dementia, but that does not mean that all of them have dementia or Alzheimer's. Most of them actually make up of depression, because this means that they could have lost a family member or a loved one, or that they are just lonely inside of the nursing home, and that could bring down their happiness levels and make them depressed. A way that you can keep the residents' energy levels up and keep them happy is to stay busy with activities, because this can keep them from thinking about everyday life, and it can also give them a really good serotonin boost when they win a nice prize at the end of each prize. Good physical health and mental health lead to an active lifestyle, because good physical and mental health lead to an active lifestyle, because this can positively affect the cognitive decline in elders. And the effects from activities, specifically bingo, is it can positively affect their hand and eye coordination from dabbing the cards with the dabbers. And so that's why for my project, I decided to do bingo and blankets at the local senior citizens housing center. So the first thing I started out doing was making the blankets, and these are very simple blankets actually. The type of blanket they are is a tie blanket. So the first thing that I started out doing was I just measured the blankets, but I didn't really have to measure them because I just went to the store, I got some like $4 or $5 blankets, and they were all the same size, and I just laid them on top of each other. And then after that step, I just cut 1.5 inches between each cut, and then I tied the layers together that were on top of each other, and I made 2 of those. That wasn't too bad. That only took about 2 hours in all. And then so this led to my bingo night. For my bingo night, anyone that won the bingo game, or there was a separate game going on, it was called a blink game, I think. And if either of the residents or the people playing the bingo won that game, then they were able to win one of my blankets. It was a lot of fun. When I showed up, they had many different Valentine themes going on, which is perfect because I made Valentine's holiday cards for each of the people playing the bingo game. And I also did not realize that there were so many different cards of bingo because they had like 15 cards of bingo going on. It was a lot of fun. Even though this project may seem like it was pretty easy and smooth, I did have a lot of challenges during the way. And the first one would be the nursing home misinformation. First I wanted to do my project at the nursing home here in Willow, and I scheduled it for December, but weather permitting, I had to reschedule it for December. And when me and my mentor, Miss Barry, we showed up to the nursing home, the activities manager never showed up, and it turns out she doesn't even work on weekends. And then so I called for the next 2 weeks, and nobody picked up. So I kind of got ghosted by the nursing home, but it's okay. It's okay. And that just leads to the holiday cards because I did make Christmas cards at first, and then I made New Year's cards, and then when it got rescheduled, because I finally got to do it in the senior housing in February, I made some Valentine's Day cards for the residents playing the games. And that's why it just took longer than expected, but because I wanted to get it done early December, but I got it done in February, but that's okay because everything went just as smooth. Do my judges have any questions?
What other things do you think that a nursing home can do, to stimulate the mind and the bodies of these elderly people?
I think that they could give them more time outside, or whether that be in groups, or taking them places other than just the nursing home, and so they have other places and they're not just trapped in that one area. So like, it's more of like freedom. Yes. I don't have a lot of ideas for what I want to do, but I do want to work inside of a nursing home because I do like speaking to the residents a lot, so that would be one of my choices. Any other questions?
Appreciate what you did there, and this is more of a comment that, like, I know as a person, I always find going to nursing very because of like what's going to be said.
Yeah.
Do you feel more comfortable having done this? Associating, I know you said you're more confident like being around
Oh yeah.
residents now?
Oh, usually I would never be able to stand in front of people, but when I did the bingo game and I was very comfortable. I'm just more comfortable around the elder generation than my generation, but yeah. Any other questions? All right, thank you. Is that where I just end it? Thank you.
Thank you.
Wait, can I just
Clip there.
Oh,
There we go. Thank you.
wait, do I just walk out now?
You can just walk out now. Make sure you take your poster with you. I got one out for you. I just didn't want to walk across the room to bring it to you.
My judges ready? So we all know of the guitar that's been sitting in our closet. You don't know you don't know where it came from. You know it's been around, and you want to learn how to play it. You pick it up. You start learning a few things on YouTube. You start to learn a few chords, learn a few songs, and you start to pick it up, and you want to learn more. This was me 4 years ago. I knew I wanted to do something along with music, and I wanted to create a guitar, and I wanted to find something that would match my product. So I went with the healing benefits of music. Starting with the physical benefits, it can help you manage your pain and can help you take your mind off the pain and channel that focus elsewhere. It also lowers your heart rate, and that will lower your risk in stroke or heart attack, and that will just keep you calmer. And it also boosts your immune system, which can help you fight diseases and infection. Then when we go to the mental benefits, these are probably the most beneficial when you start listening to music. The reduction of anxiety and depression, like I said, lowering your heart rate and calming you down. It also fires those neurotransmitters. It all depends on what type of music you listen to. So if you're listening to high energy music, it will fire those neurotransmitters, and it will release dopamine and serotonin into your brain, and that is setting you in that positive mindset to get you through the day. One of the most powerful things about music is it brings back the lost memories to the elderly. People associate music with emotion, and that when they feel a certain way they feel when they listen to a song, or they danced, or they remember this, it brings back that emotion and memory. And this helps us understand Alzheimer's and dementia, and by activating your limbic system. But when you listen to that song or that piece, it will bring back the memories. And in the limbic system, it activates the hippocampus, which is your storing for learning, skills, and your memory. This is where my product came in, the axe. I have a passion for music. I knew I wanted to build a guitar. I knew I wanted to do something along the lines of music. I needed to know what I wanted to research, which was the power of music, and I needed to find what materials I needed. So step one was preparation. I started out by going and finding 2 pieces of wood, or wood for the body, just 2 pieces of maple butcher block. We glued them together. I got a guitar from a pawn shop. It had all the working electronics. It had everything I needed to put in there, and I needed my strings and string ferrules. And string ferrules are there next to that bag. Oh, my bad. Oh, I broke it. Oh, I really broke it. I really broke it. So I had to find all my working electronics, strings and string ferrules. String ferrules is where your strings lead through from the back to the front of the guitar and lay across the fretboard. So I started with the body. I started by gluing the 2 pieces together, cutting out my own design and drawing my own design on there. By routering in my neck slots and my pickups, that had got everything ready, and by drilling my bridge holes. That's right here where where the strings go over the fretboard. I didn't end up making the neck. I ended up using the one from the pawn shop. I used what I needed. I sanded the paint off, and I wood burned my name and lightning bolts into the headstock, and I thought that turned out really well. Step 4, I'm starting to get impatient. I start to look at it and see it becoming a guitar. I start to want to get more things done on it, like sanding it, shaping it, putting the bridge on. It's a very important piece of hardware, and then also putting the neck on. I start to look at it and say, hey, it's looking like a guitar. It's looking good. Well, look at me go. I start to break things. I start putting screws inside the neck with an impact, start breaking them off inside of there. I put the bridge on too early. It got in my way when I started drilling holes and everything. It sent my holes in for my ferrules. It sent them in at angles because it was sanded and it wasn't a flat surface. And I put the bridge on too early. It was also getting in my way. So every time I went to drill a hole, I'd have to hold the neck flat so everything would drill perfectly straight. That ended up not hurting me too bad. I just filled those holes, and those didn't have to be specific measurements. So I was saved by my mentor. I didn't get too much work done with him until this moment in time. We started fixing everything, resetting the neck. That took a long time getting all those screws out. We got new screws, put those in there. He got all my electronics lined out. I still haven't got them soldered in, but we got our holes drilled and everything ready to solder. And we also inserted and leveled my ferrules all the way into the body. I start to get impatient again. I get everything lined out. It's time to get a good finish over it. So I find out what I need to get, which is grain filler, and it fills all the imperfections and cracks inside the body. So I scraped the filler all over the body, and I ended up not getting a picture of this step. It was just a thin layer of glue, probably an 1/8 inch thick, over the whole guitar, and I ended up sanding that off, and I decided to stain it after that. And this is what I got. This is what happened at 11:30 at night. Just me working by myself, staining it in the dark, and it turned out to be really, really ugly. I was pretty down at this point. I wanted to get rid of it and just be done with it completely. But I knew it was time for a new finish. So I started with the base coat. I did 2 coats of white and then 2 coats of black over that, and 2 coats of the purple and blue color changing, and then the clear coat. I waited about 15-20 minutes in between each of these steps to let it dry and make sure there were no runs. And this is my white, and then my black, and then I did my blue. I was very happy with it the way it turned out. I like the new finish, but I still don't have too long to get it done. I'm ready to. The deadline's coming. I have to solder my wires in. I've never done this before. I'm using an old soldering iron from 1990. It's got all gummed up. It's not heating up. I was doing that for probably 3 or 4 hours. Probably took me 2 hours to get one wire done. And then I ended up sanding my solder down so to get that gunk off, and it heated up well, and I got everything on there and got my strings on. I guess we'll see how she plays. This is my works cited. I named my project Ride the Lightning, which is named after a Metallica album, and Metallica is one of my favorite bands to play off of. Sorry. So I'm gonna play Fade to Black from Metallica. Oh, sorry. I gotta loop it first. Play it one more time. I'm going to end the loop, play over the top of that. Jesus Christ. I'm sorry about that. It wasn't very good. But do my judges have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
I looked through the report and I didn't see what your total cost was.
Oh, total cost, I spent $175 on the pawn shop guitar itself. The two pieces of wood, they were just scrap, so we glued them together. I spent probably about $25 on strings. I bought a nice set of strings. The ferrules, which are here on the back, they cost me about $6. I just ordered them online. So 170 plus about 240, 250. And if I bought a guitar of this scale with the pickups that were in it, it'd probably cost me $600, $700. Do you have any other questions? Yes? Yes. I love playing music. I love playing with other people. It's just fun. Good time. Not very well. I can sing, but not very well. Is there any other questions? Yes, Sarah.
Are you gonna write your own song?
Yes. Someday. Eventually.
Very good.
Yes, Hannah.
Was it worth it to build your own versus to buy one from the store?
Yeah, it was definitely cheaper. It was a lot of stress to build it, but I'd probably rather just buy one. But now I know how, so I know a few more things about it, so I don't have to make more mistakes doing it again. Yeah, very happy with it. I'm just glad I got it done. There's times I think I wouldn't have got it done, but I did. Thank you.
Are my judges ready? Imagine you are a child who has been moved from one home to a next because your parents have chose harmful substances over you. Place yourself in that child's shoes and see how you'd feel. Hi, my name's Danae. Children experience a lot of hatred towards themselves or their parents over situations that are not in their control. They become hateful and snippy, and they just turn really negative because of the negative impacts they have experienced. Anxiety is fear of the future, fear of things that hasn't happened yet. And most children experience that when they're placed in a different home because they don't know what that home's like. They don't know what they could experience. They just know that they're there. They also have fear, which is of present threats, as in, are my parents mad at me? Are they okay? What's going on? Can I help? What can I fix? They also have a lot of trust issues. And trust issues also blends in with abandonment issues, because if you deeply trust someone and they abandon you, leave you behind, you're going to experience abandonment issues. And with that comes along attachment issues. Attachment issues is a really strong one. We got a little boy who had already lived in his home, and he became so attached to my mom that she couldn't shower without him. He'd scream and bawl his eyes out at the door, so scared that she was leaving. He also would run into the back of her legs when she'd stop walking because he was so close behind her because he was so scared. Abandonment issues also has longer lasting effects on a female than it would a male, because when they get into relationships with significant others, they feel the need to find a father figure in that significant other, which is a struggle because it causes lots of fights in that relationship, or causes the significant other to become very uncomfortable and not want anything to do with it. They're also bad with relationships with friends because they feel the need to stay home and not want to leave because they're scared of being abandoned again. They feel as if they go out with their friends too long, something's going to happen and they're going to be left behind. Types of abuse in a home are strong, and verbal abuse was the least one that I could find, but I also found out that it's more manipulation and humiliation than it is anything else. There's also substance abuse, which is any illegal substance that your parent or guardian chooses and takes in front of you or with you in the home. There's also silent abuse, which is the #1 abuse in America, and it is just the silent treatment. A lot of people don't realize that, but the silent treatment can be used in negative ways and cause lasting effects on young children, especially if their parents get mad at them, lock them in a room because they want to ignore them. That could cause a huge trauma on them. There's also physical abuse. Discipline and physical abuse are different. A lot of people believe nowadays that discipline is a form of physical abuse, but it is not. Discipline is needed. Physical abuse is not. Physical abuse is being hit, kicked, or punched by a guardian or parent, and it leaves whelps, bruises, busted lips, or any open wounds to the poor innocent child. Parents see attitude out of children. They see the children getting really hateful towards them, not wanting anything to do with them. They also see being antisocial, wanting to stay in their room, wanting to stay outside, avoiding contact with them. They also see depression and blame it on their attitude and the antisocial that they go through. But in reality, a child can feel really alone. And that's hard to see, especially if they're really good at hiding it, because everybody is different. Everybody shows something different. There's also attitude distancing, which goes along with the parents see attitude. Attitude distancing is a real thing. And when I first heard it, I was like, no, there's attitude, but not attitude distancing. But I did some research and I looked into it, and there's actually attitude distancing in children where they avoid and cause attitude towards parents or people that have put them in negative situations, and that is their way of distancing themselves from the negativity and trying to avoid what they're being put through. They also can fail school if they experience at-home issues. A lot of children struggle at school to focus because they know that they have to go back home. They know that they have to go home to all the negative stuff that they are put through, and they don't want to do that. There's also self-blame. My oldest niece, which really breaks my heart, she used to say, "Is it my fault? Is it my fault that they did this? Is it my fault that we're here?" And that really tore me up, because being an aunt and hearing those words come out of somebody so young is so wrong, and it should have never been said in the first place. There's also not wanting to be sober. If you grow up in a household with parents that are drinking all the time or doing illegal substances and you think that that's normal, you're going to feel the need to do that too, because it's normal, right? Teen drug use is 31.2% out of just high schoolers like me, just 12th graders. That is insane and very wrong, and children need to be taught better than this. But when you grew up in a home that's all you know, you're going to feel the need to keep up with that too. Teen drinking is 19.7% out of just high schoolers. Honestly, that is not as high as I thought it was going to be. I was pretty shocked that that was quite low. And teen vape use is 10%, which this was a study that just happened, and I have a feeling that they didn't do it too properly, because if you look nowadays, everywhere you turn, there's a child hitting a vape. I chose my project as a father-daughter game night, and I was super excited about this because I had learned that often the word parents is only referring to mother, because you realize that the mother gets the kids up and ready for school, gets them out the door, and when they get home, dinner's ready, and everything is done. The dad has to come home from work and has nothing to do. Or you have the father that's just extremely lazy and chooses not to involve himself. And I chose my project because I really wanted to see how the fathers would react with the children. And I did come to realize that they really didn't want to participate. They kept saying, "Oh, go hang out with your friends," or "You can go do it, it's okay." And I made sure to have cornhole and different board games, and I made sure to have a cupcake walk and coloring, and I had food for them, and I made sure that I picked some male-related games too, so that the fathers would maybe be more involved, but it really stayed the same. They just wanted to sit down and kind of overview their child having fun. And this is really important to me, my project overall, because I want to raise awareness to not only other students, but to teachers, to realize that you could really make or break a child's day. You truly do not know what's going on in their home. It may look pretty and happy and rainbows and butterflies on the outside, but on the inside, the most traumatic things could be happening, and nobody realizes it. I mean, even if you contact social services because you're worried about a home, nowadays they really don't overcheck it very much. They just say, "Oh, you're good." And the child is in his room freaking out because he knows that he's about to get in trouble because of the social services being there. A lot of people don't realize it, but children are a lot smarter than you think, and they struggle a lot more, and they are a lot better at hiding it than an adult would be. I also want to fit this into my future because I just got my CNA license, and I want to go through MSU, which I have been accepted to, and I have enough scholarships for, and I am going into behavioral health for children so that I can help them through therapy and help relieve some of that trauma that they have experienced. These are some pictures from my project. We had, I believe it was 7 different kinds of cupcakes, and that was a struggle. But up here in this picture, there is a grandfather and his granddaughter. He was really ready to be there. He come in with the biggest smile on his face, super excited to be there. He was overjoyed, and he told me that he had actually adopted her. Her and her 2 older siblings, and the 2 older siblings were in sports, so he didn't have much time with just her, and he was very ready to be there. He did cornhole, cupcake walk, any board game she wanted, anything she wanted to do, he was right there and ready. And I was so happy to see that. I was so proud of it. And this one is my dad, and he is my best friend, and he has always been there, Every cheer game that I had, he was right there. If I had anything at school, he was right there. Except for tonight, he did have to be at work later. They're shorthanded, but he's super ready and super involved. My challenges were staying in my budget. Obviously, I didn't think it through enough, and the cupcakes were going to be a lot more money than I thought they were going to be. That was a struggle. Also, with it being on Friday, October the 13th, I think this is where the bad luck comes in. I got sick the week of. I couldn't attend school until Friday. I had caught the flu. And because of that, I couldn't cook the cupcakes. That's cross-contamination. And I had to make 245 of them. By the way, I left with only 3, so it turned out really well. But I couldn't cook them because I didn't want to risk anybody getting sick, and cross-contamination, and being in nursing, I'm a germaphobe, so. So I had to split them out between households. I split them between my brother, my mom, my sister, and I did my best, and I got them cooked and iced. We were missing a few, though, because one of the foster boys we have is diabetic, and he found them. And he won't admit it, but we know where they went. And working around a planned event was hard for me because I like my schedules. I like having a time point for everything and being aware of what I'm doing today, and so working around that was quite hard. I also really struggle to ask for help because I like to be independent, I like to be on my own, and asking for help is not my strong suit. I would rather fight with something and figure it out on my own and get mad at it than to ask for help. So asking for help during this and being sick was my main struggle. Do my judges have any questions? Yes. Yes, I did. Yes, yes. Since they cooked the cupcakes, I realized how much stress was lifted off of me, and they all made a certain amount, so it really helped me focus on something else that I needed to accomplish. Yes. I will. I definitely will.
How many people attended this event?
We didn't keep count. We did count up to 30, and then huge groups started coming up at the door at once, and we had to stop counting because I wanted to make sure that all the parents knew that I was taking pictures, and I wanted them to know that if they didn't want the pictures taken, they needed to let me know so that I didn't get in any trouble for using pictures of children that I shouldn't have. Yes, ma'am.
I think this is a tremendous project. I especially like your presentation on abandonment issues and on silent abuse.
I didn't either. I was really deeply shocked when I found that out because I didn't really think that could be a form of abuse. I mean, I know it's mean, but I really didn't expect it to be counted as a form of abuse. And it actually kind of goes along with emotional abuse, and I didn't realize that. A lot of adults that were asking me down there about my poster and I was telling them about it, they're like, it's really abuse? And I'm like, yeah, it's really abuse. I didn't know it either. Any other questions? Alrighty.
Are my judges ready? In the United States, there are over 47 million Americans that are aged 65 and older. In the time that it takes me to say this, 14 more people will reach that age. Hello, my name is Ashlyn Whittington, and I believe that nursing homes are a good place for people who need help with everyday tasks. I knew when I started thinking about my senior project that I had a lot of decisions to make, and I had no idea what I wanted to do, even starting my senior year. But then I went back to my childhood and thinking about everything that I was involved in. And my grandparents were some of my biggest supporters in life, and I started thinking about some of the things that I used to do with them. So, when I was younger, my grandma used to work at the nursing home, and so I was very involved in the nursing home and everything that went on there. I knew the residents, I knew the staff, and just everything about that was so fun to me. I loved being there and being with her. So I initially chose to do the nursing home for my senior project, but then I had to decide what to do, and I had no idea because the possibilities were basically endless. So then I decided that I wanted to do activities at the nursing home. But my grandma was not my biggest inspiration for this. My great-grandpa actually was. I grew up with him for most of my life. He taught me almost everything that I know. In 2018, when he got into a car wreck and had to be put into the nursing home, it was very hard for me. But throughout that, I got to go visit him lots of times and see even more how the nursing home ran and what went on there because I was older and I understood more. He was in a nursing home from 2018 until 2021 when he passed away. So nursing, a lot of people think that they are there to many ways. Thank you. Now, while they are in the nursing home, they are going to be very looked after. They are going to be eating properly and having proper diets. They are going to be exercising as they should. And they are just going to get help with anything that they are going to need help with, such as getting out of bed, bathing. Even if they can't eat by themselves, they are going to have help doing this. From taking care of their physical and mental health, how are they also supposed to entertain the residents too when they are already so busy? So that is where I came in, and I decided that I wanted to entertain the nursing home residents just a little bit. So I decided that I would like to do activities at the nursing home, and with this came a lot of planning. I not only had to plan for my time, but I had to plan for my mentor's time and the nursing home's time. So I then had to call the activity director to make sure that the dates that I had picked out were going to be okay with the nursing home as well. So I initially wanted to go every Saturday for a month, so 4 Saturdays. And so I had picked activities that were going to allow me to do every Saturday for a month. So I picked 2 nail days for the ladies and then 2 board game days for anyone involved, including the staff if they wanted to. After this, I then had to get everything that I needed in order to do this. So I had to get all of the nail supplies and all of the board games. Thank goodness a local church let me actually borrow the board games, so I didn't have to go out and buy, 10 to 15 board games, which would have been very costly. So the day of my first activity day at the nursing home comes, and I have to go and pick up the board games, which there was a lot of board games, so it was kind of hard to fit them all in my car. And then I had to get to the nursing home and set all of them up, which was kind of challenging at first, but we'll get to that later. But the most challenging part of all of this, which I didn't know was going to be, was actually getting the residents involved. And it was a huge struggle. So, although I thought most of my senior project went very smoothly, obviously, as with anything, there were difficulties and things that I faced that I didn't know that I was going to. So one of the first things that happened was I was not able to go the 4 times that I had planned. I was only able to go 2. And that is just because some things happened, like my mentor couldn't be there, and then I ended up getting sick. So that was just really hard. And then when I got to the nursing home, the activity director that I had initially called and set everything up with, she was not there on the weekends, and I did not know that. So I kind of just had to figure out everything on my own, which was very hard, as I had never done anything like this before. And then getting the residents to participate was also a huge struggle that I didn't realize it was going to be. I figured that when I walked into the nursing home, they were going to want to see these new faces and do these new things, but it was actually quite the opposite. They actually just wanted to stick to themselves and the people that they know and stay in their rooms and not really talk to me or try and involve themselves with me. But all in all, I had so much fun during this senior project, and it really proved my thesis to be even more true, that nursing homes are a good place for people who need help with everyday tasks. There were many people I saw there that, not only elderly people, but younger people too, who just couldn't do things for themselves. And the staff were very helpful, and I watched them do so much with the residents, and they even helped me. So I believe that if you are needing to go into a nursing home because you can't do something for yourself or a family member or just someone that you know, that the nursing home will be the right place for you. Thank you. Do my judges have any questions?
Yes. How did you get folks to participate?
It was a very big struggle, but the staff helped me a lot with that because they knew the residents very personally, so they were able to kind of like help them and just get them out of their rooms a lot easier than I would have been since I don't really know them.
If you were gonna do it again, what would you do different about getting them to participate?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I think that before I would do the activities, I would go to the nursing home and just visit with them a few times and let them get to know me. I think that that would have been a lot easier because they obviously didn't know me, and so they didn't really want to interact with someone they didn't know.
Clarification, did you end up getting to go more than once? Or?
Yes, I ended up going 2 days.
How many people did you get involved in it?
So with the board game day, we got about 5 people involved, and with the nail day, I would say we got about 10-ish people involved.
What do you see as the biggest needs of nursing homes?
Oh, I think, are you talking about like what the nursing home
Yeah,
needs
like,
themselves?
Just from your experience of being there, what could they use to help? More people, more room, more? activities?
I would say more people to kind of get them to do activities because when I was there and I was interacting with them and I kind of just saw them, they were kind of just like sitting by themselves or with like the friends that they had there, but none of them were really doing anything. They kind of just sat there, and it was kind of sad to see.
And give me a test.
Testing 1, 2.
Perfect. Are my judges ready? Ever since I was little, I've always been amazed with wondering how our world works, how things get from point A to point B, why things are the way that they are, and how our society functions in general. And no, although I don't think that I've found the answers to many of those questions, I doubt that many people have, I think that I've at least learned more about how a large part of our country operates. Hi, I'm Mason Owens, and I believe that there is far more to retail than meets the eye. My first exposure to retail was whenever I took the job as a cashier at Wagner's just down the road my freshman year. I happily worked there for the next 3 years until this last August. I've also worked in FBLA-sponsored school store during lunches every single day since the start of sophomore year. Just recently this year, I actually took over as manager, and that's why I chose to look into retail, was because I wanted to kind of upgrade the school store. I wanted to upgrade every facet of it as almost a parting gift, as a thank you for all the wonderful memories it's given me. In order to do this, I had to comb dozens of articles top to bottom about a retail setting and how to improve it. And there's a lot of things that you may think of just off the top of your head whenever I say what makes a good store good. Something as trivial or easy as just making sure the shelves are stocked. You don't want to walk into a store and have them not have what you need. You'll go somewhere else and take your business elsewhere. Or even keeping a detailed inventory. That way you always know what you have and what you don't. That way everything will always arrive on time. And we're not even going to get into the whole can of worms that is scheduling. Because in an ideal world, everybody should be able to work with everybody else. But we all know that we don't live in an ideal world. And there's also a lot of subconscious elements that go into retail. Have you ever wondered why Walmart always blasts the same 5 songs over and over again every single time that you're in there? Well, they do it for a reason. It's because they're popular. They want to get you through their doors, and they want to make you stay there once you walk in. If you also notice, these songs don't promote something like shoplifting or needless violence or anything of the sort that a store would obviously discourage against. It's all very strategic. And there's also product placement that's a whole mysterious art in of itself. Product placement is where you specifically decide where your items are going to be on your shelves and displays to hopefully increase your sales. Now, you're not going to go into a store and have toothpaste, for instance, if you're looking for that. The toothpaste isn't going to be slung all over the store. If you go into any establishment, it's all going to be in one location. That way you can easily come in and get what you want. Stores do this because they want your money. They want you to come in and find what you're looking for. They'll also very discreetly, but very strongly promote their own brand. Always Save, Great Value, all of these companies in their own locations try to position their items closer to eye level and closer to the front of the aisle. That way it will always be the very first thing you see because they get more pennies on the dollar that way whenever they sell their own items. All of this to say that it's a very complicated mess running a store is, and I took all of this information into context whenever I decided to upgrade the FBLA store. The first thing that you would notice whenever you walked into the old store was the ceiling tiles. Many of them were yellow and droopy from water damage, and that really subtracted from the whole atmosphere that I wanted to create. So, I knew that I had to do something about it. My mentor, Ethan Leedy, graciously allowed me to use some of the school's ceiling tiles they had stockpiled. Many of them were easy. You just pop the old one out and pop the new one in, but some of them required complicated measuring and cuts to fit into the track. But that was just the easy part. The walls were a little bit more tedious. So you can see many of them had divots, deviations, and miscolorations all over them. And I just couldn't stand by and look at that every single day. So in order to fix this, I had to come through and patch it. I ran down to Wagner's once again and bought a tub of spackling and a putty knife. For those of you who don't know, although I'm sure all of you do, spackling is just this little putty that you can put on a hole in your wall, and after a few hours it'll sit up like a really brittle stone. I came through with a sheetrock sanding sponge and sanded this patch down. That way the entire wall would be flush all along the length of it. And only after that was I still not ready to paint. So I had to come through several days over Christmas break to get the painting process done. I had to heave all of this junk from one side of the room to the other, all these heavy deep freezers and fridges and slushy machines and counters alike. I had to move all of them from one side of the room to the other so that a way I could come through and put masking tape to shield everything that couldn't get paint on it. All over the floor, the ceiling, the outlets, hand sanitizer dispensers, I had to shield everything because I knew that I wasn't really that experienced of a painter, so I couldn't really trust myself on that. And then it was time to paint. I was very fortunate to only have to do one coat on every single wall. There's only a few walls that are this color. It's called Italian straw. It's made by Easy Care. It's just a light gray. And then there's this maroon accent wall right behind the sales counter, which is what you look at whenever you look through the very front door. I didn't have any mishaps, and I think it all went very easy rolling it on. But, and here is how everything looks in the end. But that was just the physical elements. The subconscious aspects that we talked about earlier was a whole different ballpark. The music that we talked about, it also took a little bit trying to get that down in the school store. So there's a period of lunch where everybody's walking around in the hallway and they haven't really found their seat yet. I would blast all this popular and high energy music that I'm sure Mr. Schmidt loved whenever he would walk the hallways as well, in the hopes that I could draw people in my store and keep them there because of the music. Or at the very least, I just hoped they would look in and acknowledge us. Maybe they'd come in some other day. And of course, whenever foot traffic wasn't that high, I changed it over to music that the employees liked just a little bit better because after all, they're unpaid and you have to keep them around somehow. Product placement also, a lot of consideration went into that. I realized right away that our most popular item, the peanut butter and jelly Uncrustable, could be relocated. So I moved it to the very front counter, which, like I said, you can automatically see if you just look through the door. So now I'm creating this dream scenario where people are going to look through the door because they hear my music and then see an item that they probably want to buy. I know that it's at a really small scale compared to what you may think of, but it's a very useful concept that a lot of businesses employ. That increased the sales of that item by around 30% according to our inventory reports, which I'm very proud to say. I also moved our most shoplifted item, the fruit roll-up, to the same location at the front counter. That way, if anybody were to take one out of its bin that it's stocked at, an employee would surely have to notice it happening. That increased shoplifting all across the store, across every item, by around 50% roughly, according to our inventory reports, which I am also proud to say. I also organized our chips. That way you could easily come in and see what you want sitting right there. Just like I talked about with the toothpaste, it's good to have everything in one location and centralized. And the snack fridge, in the previous slide, you can see it's vertical. I positioned our second most popular item on the second highest shelf. And I positioned the item that I wanted to sell the most of on the top shelf. That way, if you were to just open the fridge, your eyes would automatically go here and look at the item that I want you to buy more of. And that did a little bit with sales, admittedly, but it didn't do quite as much as I wanted it to. Everything down to the paint color was very meticulously chosen. Here is the old paint. It was this ugly tan color that felt very claustrophobic and did a horrible job at hiding imperfections in the sheetrock. I adjusted it by repainting with Easy Care's Italian straw. It did a lot better hiding imperfections. It made the room feel a lot more open and less claustrophobic, like the walls were closing in on you. And I think that it fit the maroon and white color scheme better. For the maroon accent wall that I put on behind the sales counter, and I used a semi-gloss sheen, which is a little bit shinier than the satin I used here. That way the sales counter would pop whenever you looked at it through the doorway. All this to say that a lot of effort and consideration went into this. But that's not to say that it didn't come without its challenges of sorts. I had never really done anything like this before, all in all. It's true that I'd painted a little bit here, done a little bit of ceiling work there, But at the end of the day, most of that was for the school and VOTEC or working with my dad. Whenever 3 o'clock rolls around, it's not my problem anymore and I get to go home. But with the senior project, that's a bit of a different story. You actually have to creatively try to engineer solutions to all the problems that may come your way. It was very arduous trying to schedule everything and figure out my next step, but I think it was very rewarding, and I think that I truly did learn a lot from this experience. And once again, all this to say that if you were to walk out those doors right there, walk around just a little bit, I guarantee you you'd find a shop before too long. And a lot of people don't really think about all the effort that it takes to maintain a storefront. But the country truly does depend on it. Do my judges have any questions? Yep.
So do you find yourself, since you've been like interested in this, going into stores and thinking like how to make things better?
Yeah. Or like, why is I walked into Dollar General the other day, and of course it's Dollar General, so you can't really give them too much grief for anything. I love that they're here, but anyway, there was a particular item in the medicine aisle. I was ate up with allergies, and it was a particular Vicks item, and you put it in your nostril and you plug the other one and you inhale, and it's like a miracle. It wipes out your allergies. But I wondered, why on earth is this on the bottom shelf? If pollen's coming around, why do you have all this other stuff, over here and way high up, like nobody's going to see it on the bottom shelf? So that's just, another principle of product placement and where you should put certain things.
Something you'd do different if you were to do that again?
Absolutely. I think that I would do I wouldn't change like the big decisions, but I would change the way that I went about them. Knowing what I do now, I'm not going to wake up and decide that, yeah, I can paint that whole room in 2 days, even though I have to go to work at 4 o'clock and all this, or understand that you're not going to learn a fraction of what it takes to run a real business overnight. You actually have to develop and really soak in what you're researching for weeks upon weeks to understand why you're doing what you're doing. There was a lot of it that I was overly ambitious about, which isn't always a bad thing. I think that I would more realistically manage my expectations if I were to go about this again.
Questions appear to be done. I'm going to drop a thought bomb on you.
Yep.
It's just going to unlock a whole new world for you. Give you a whole other classification of things to think about. My Walmart days, I don't know if it's still the rule, but the action alley, so where all the end caps are,
Yep.
only put items that have a multiple price. So 4 for $10, 2 for $5, because then people think that they have to buy 2 to get the price.
Yeah.
Or it just introduces the thought into their head that they could buy 2. So just take that.
Yeah. Or something I noticed the other day, if you go into Casey's and whenever you go through the doors, you hook a right around the little, the slushy machines in that little section, and you go over towards the deli counter, and you're looking down the alley with all the drinks right there. If you take just a few steps down, you're going to be greeted by the energy drinks and all these other beverages that have that exact same principle of you can pay $5 and you can get 2 of these monsters or other beverages. And that greets you almost as soon as you walk in the aisle, which is a very similar principle to what you were talking about.
The funny thing is at Walmart, the price is the same, no matter how many.
Yeah.
They're just putting it on there to make people think that they could.
Yeah. Thank you guys very much.
Yeah.
Should be ready when you are.
All right, are my judges ready? All right. So you might be wondering why I want to learn about pond life and habitat. But this want for learning this has been started since I was about 5. I used to go with my great-grandfather all the time down to North Fork Lake, and we used to catch striped bass. I never caught any, but he would always catch some on the tiniest little baits. I always think you need the biggest baits, but no, he'd catch them on the weirdest little baits. And then once he passed away in 2020, I had to find a new way to go fishing because we didn't have his bass boat anymore. So I started pond fishing, which is something I really enjoyed and really got to see how it's a lot different from going fishing on a lake because it's in my opinion, it's a lot easier. Now you might be looking at this pond and it looks pretty good. You know, you got some overgrown bushes, you have some low-hanging trees, and you got some sticks and wire. But a lot of those, it's making it a lot harder for you to fish because you catch your bait on a log. You can't really get off unless you have some magic way of getting off. And the low-hanging branches, you can only cast on this pond about 3 places, from about here to you can go about there, and you might have a chance to cast one, but most of the time you're getting stuck in a tree. Now, pond maintenance, main reason I want to learn this is so I didn't endanger this wildlife by trying to fix this up and make it a lot nicer. I learned how it can better wildlife and what I can do to better the wildlife, because in here there's probably only about 3 bass in this pond at the moment, but we put, I think it's about 500 shiners in it, and then we put, just recently we put 40 bluegill in it before Christmas, about that time, and then we put 20 in it recently to kind of get the bluegill population up, and then about another year we're going to put some more bass in it. And it also makes it a lot easier to fish, because if you're trying to convince your siblings to go out with fishing with you, you know they're going to whine about these thorn bushes, going to whine about all the low-hanging trees, and you don't really want them to mess up your fishing poles. So if you just make it a lot easier for them to at least go fishing, they might enjoy it, and you also get to show them something you really love to do. Now, some of the tools I used a weeder with a 3-blade attachment to take out a bunch of those thorn bushes you saw there. Now, it might have made it look like it was going to be easy, but it took me almost 30 minutes per thorn bush because I didn't have gloves, which was probably my main thing I needed. And I also was getting hit in the face by thorns every 5 seconds. I used tree pruners to cut down low-hanging branches to kind of make it where you can cast a lot more on all the banks. I used a tree saw for the bigger limbs that were dead or just were in the way of trying to fish. And I used a shovel to kind of fix up that bank. There's a bank where cows sit. You'll see later in the pictures. But there's a bank where the cows sit, and normally it's pretty steep because I fall on my butt every time I try to walk down it. But we kind of fixed it up and made it a lot easier for their cow to get down and make it a lot safer for them. And I used Toron. So I used Toron for many of the trees that I just snipped with the tree pruner, like the small trees on the ground. It kind of kills it so it doesn't grow back. And I also used it for a lot of the thorn bushes I used a weed eater on. Now, when you should do pond maintenance, I think at least you should do it 1 to 2 times a year. The online says you should do it 3 to 4. But I think as long as you do it 1 time in the winter, get a bunch of your fallen trees out, what's died, you get some of your thorn bushes out, because it's a lot easier work during the winter because you're not cooking. And then in the summer, you can always just trim it up, make it look nice, find some more fallen trees if you have to. But a lot of those fallen trees you can take, and what we did was there's probably about 6 spots of just fallen trees. We had 6 piles of just it, and we took a bunch of those and separated them up into brush piles, and it makes it a really good habitat for quail that they have running out there. Now, some of the fish species that are in this pond, there is bass, bluegill, perch, and catfish. Now, your shiners, you always want to put those in there. If you want to restock a pond, you always want to put them in there at least from a year until you put something else in there so they can get their population up, because a lot of them will die off the start because there's not really good fish to try and keep alive. Bluegill, you always want to put those in after your shiners because you can get their population up so your bass just don't go in there and eat everything. And you put your bass in there after a year after putting your bluegill in. And if you want to, you put catfish in, but sometimes if you put catfish in, it can destroy the habitat because they just really like eating a lot. Now, this is some of the before pictures. You can see there's that thorn bush. There's a bunch of them down here. And then this is a water runoff that we fixed because it was way too low. This is a spring-fed pond, so it wouldn't let it fill up to a point. And then there's all that. I'm coming back out in the summer and trimming up a bunch of those bushes on the side to where they're not so overgrown. but a lot of this was dead in the wintertime because it's winter. But there's a bunch of thorn bushes in that mix that I took out. And there's the after. You can see it's a lot cleaner on all the banks. You can fish from all the banks. You can see I took out that big thorn bush that was at the top, the last one. Took out that, and then that tiny little one down there. And you can see some of those log piles that we moved around. There was about 6 of those piles. So that was the longest part of this project, I would say, is moving those log piles. It took me a while. And you see that right there, the cow going down that embankment I was telling we shoring, so it wasn't so steep for them. It's a lot safer for their cows and all the cows and their calves. Now, some of my challenges I faced was weather. I am a big procrastinator, and I waited till about Christmas time when I thought it was going to be a great time to go do this project out in the cold with a frozen pond. Now, you might be thinking, you can just do this outside with your brush hogger in 20 minutes, which I originally thought was going to be a great idea because I was like, oh, I'll just get this project done soon and have the easiest project. But with cold weather, muddy dirt, you can't really do much with a tractor because you're just going to destroy everything. So I didn't get to use the tractor at all, which made it a lot harder. My mentor, I love Mark. He is an amazing guy. If you ever meet him, he's a pretty cool guy. He works for the Air Force, but during this time, he was gone almost every week up at Whiteman. He goes up there, and there's a point where he was gone for almost 3 weeks at a time. So I didn't really get to see my mentor much, but I liked learning stuff on my own. I've always been one of those people, I like doing stuff on my own. So I like doing it by myself. I got 2 hours with him, I think. And in time, I was a big procrastinator, like I was saying. Did not really do it as much as I should. I got, I think, 32 hours in this project. So it took me a little while. I think the longest part, like I was saying, was those logs. Those were not fun. And I got this turned in the day before senior project. But I learned a lot from not really rushing it, but learning ways I can kind of speed up the process and still not damage the wildlife. And learn new skills. I know I have always used a weed eater, but I've never used it to cut thorn bushes, which I learned pretty quick is not fun. I got slapped in the face a couple times by that. And I've never used Toron because I've always just clipped trees, and if they grow back weird, they grow back weird, and you clip them again. But that Toron will also make it a lot more beneficial so you don't stump your foot on those little stumps. And this is why I think pond maintenance should be a thing we do regularly. Some people think it can damage your ponds, but as long as you know what you're doing, you can always benefit your wildlife and not really damage it. Do my judges have any questions?
Research, you talked about ducks being weed control, so did you get ducks for your pond?
We did not get ducks. This is not my pond. This is Mark's Bolander. It's my buddy's dad's, and he doesn't really like ducks too much. They also have neighbors' dogs that always get on their property, and they've tried to have ducks before, and the neighbor's dog killed them. So, yeah, no, didn't really work out for them.
Do you think you'll be able to use any of these skills that you
So,
learned in the future?
yeah. So actually, about that, I'm planning to be a welder in the future, but we just got a new property. We moved out of town. We usually lived by the Hicks house, I think is what it's called. And we used to live in town. Now we got 20 acres and 3 ponds, and all of them are super bad because nobody's really kept up with them. So I got my work cut out for me this summer. But yeah, I'm playing this skills. I've always wanted to learn how to pond maintenance and how to know if your ecosystem of your pond's really good. So I've enjoyed learning this, and I think it's going to benefit me because I can use it on my own property now. Any other questions? Thank you.
All right. Are my judges ready? John Early was a 17-year-old boy. He always had a love for firefighting. His father and grandfather were both the fire chief at the town that they lived in. His grandfather was the fire chief for about 7 years. His dad was the fire chief for about 6 years. So you could say he was grown up. He was born into the career. His grandpa, he continued to get his education at a college and obtained his Fire 1 and 2. Hello, my name is Caden Foster, and my project was support your firefighters. Firefighting is a high risk. You have to have proper equipment, so PPE, personal protective equipment, and a lot of training essentials you'll have to do. So classes in between, when you're not doing anything, they'll host classes. Safety on the job is a really big one. You have to have safety on the job to be a firefighter because it is a very dangerous job. Firefighters are public safety workers. They work around the clock, so they'll work 24 on to 48 off, or 48 on to 72 off. They put out forestry fires, so fires in the woods. They do burning buildings, so a building fire. And they also do accidents. So car accidents, truck accidents, any kind of vehicle accident. The requirements of the job. There are a lot of requirements of the job. You have long hours and have to have a clean workspace. The long hours part is when I said the 24 on, the 48 off. So they're not home as much as they probably would like to be, but it's part of the job. And a clean workspace. A clean workspace is a healthy habitat to work and won't get anything in your way. They have to be extremely organized, so all their bunker gear and their PPE, extremely organized, so when they get a call, they can put it on and get there as fast as they can. Educational requirements. A lot of educational requirements are your Fire 1 and 2, EMT, and paramedic. A college education. If you want to become a hire, you can go to college and get your science degree. And you can get your Fire 1 and 2 without a college degree. So you can just, like West Plains Fire Department was hosting a class they did from January to July. And you could get your Fire 1 and 2 without going to college. And training classes. They do a lot of training classes. Three Rivers Community College is located in Poplar Bluff, Missouri. They have the second best fire science program in the state of Missouri. They have the best student involvement program. They do a lot of accidents and pretend accidents. So building fires, they have a smoke room, they have a big box, and they have an A, B, D, or C side. And they'll tell you to go to your side, and you and your team have to go in there and rescue a dummy. And that goes to the training classes. But before you get your Fire 1 and 2 at Three Rivers, you have to do your EMT first. They want you to get that first because it's harder. And simulations, they do car accidents. So with the cars, they'll take people from the campus that go to college there. They'll dress them up, put fake blood on them, and they'll put them in a wrecked car that someone has donated to them, and they will do that. They'll get them out and practice what they're supposed to do, and they will get judged on it. My project. Step 1, organize a plan. I didn't know what I was going to do, and I was kind of getting frustrated. And I did find out a mentor, and my dad was like, Frank Van Horn would be a good mentor. So I talked to Frank Van Horn, and I started completing plans, as in that picture right there. I had to get the fonts and put it on the computer. Created and tested the decals. The first time I did this, the decals raveled up and they didn't come out as I wanted them to. So I had to restart and do it again. I printed them out, as in this one, and then I had to weed them. So I had to there's little things of vinyl in between all of those. I had to weed all those out. We put transfer tape on. So transfer tape is the thing that we put, getting ready to put it on the truck. Clean the area. So when we cleaned it, this took the most time because we had to clean it with hot and soapy water. And since I'm a fanatic at it better be good, I just stayed an extra 30 minutes to make sure it was clean so it'd stick properly. And then put them on the truck. And this was the finishing result. I thought they looked pretty good. I had a lot of challenges during this. Time was one of them. When I did this, it was October and deer season was right there, and I didn't really put that, I put deer hunting over that. It was probably not the smartest idea. And technology, I'm not the most tech savvy person in the world, but I ended up getting it done. And the hardest thing was you have to get the right font for the decals and the angle so you can all print them out so you don't have to print them out differently and waste vinyl. Ever since I was a kid, I've always looked up to my dad because he was a firefighter, fire chief here in Willow. And I think that he is the main reason why I really want to do this after high school. And he has taught me that when you're doing this and those people are at their lowest times and they have no one there, that you will always be there. The firefighters, EMT, or paramedics, or cops, when those people are at their worst times, you will always be there for them when they need someone. Thank you. Do my judges have any questions? My junior year, I went to Springfield Fire Department and job shadowed Tommy Shaw, one of the captains there at Springfield Fire Department. I probably would have put forth more effort into my senior project and not deer hunting and stuff. I really wanted to do a whole truck, but they didn't have a whole truck for me to do. Thank you.
have you ever walked into a pet store and looked around and thought to yourself, I want to take one of these animals home? Most people don't know how much work actually goes into taking these animals home and caring for them. My project is called It's Hair Raising, and my name is Winter Wilcox. The reason why I chose this project is because I have always grown up around rabbits, and I decided that I wanted to raise and breed my own. So let's start off with a little bit of history on the Japanese harlequins. Yes, it says Japanese in the name, but that was actually meant for the color scheme and not where they originated. They had actually originated in France. Now, they only arrived over here in the 1920s. So what I like about this breed is they are good for show rabbits, pet rabbits, and meat rabbits. Now, the thing about them being show rabbits is it's not like a dog where they look at the hair quality, how healthy they look, or any of that. They go by the fur pattern. So with the harlequins, they are, as you could probably tell from some of the pictures, they're calico. So they're multiple colored. So how they look at it is if you look at the ears, for instance, one ear will be, for instance, orange, and the other one will be gray or lavender or one of the other colors. The face has to be opposite of what the ears are, and then the front feet have to be the same as what the ears are colored. So they'll look for that, and you want to have it exactly a straight line. Different rabbit breeds need different sizes of cages or exercise pins. You don't have to build an exercise pin, but I didn't want to deal with having to vaccinate them every month for diseases that I can keep under control. So for a cage, you want to have a minimum of a 6 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot. This will give them plenty of room to move around and be able to eat and drink and be able to stand up on their back paws and clean themselves without having problems. Now, the exercise pin, I would suggest having at least a 10 foot by 6 foot by 3 foot, and this is because instead of putting them on the ground and letting them get close to where wild rabbits or any wild animal have been, you can cut down on worms and other diseases if you just keep them off the ground, which is why I decided to build the exercise pin instead. Now, people, if we don't exercise or get up and move around, we become sad, depressed, or anxious. Same goes for animals. They can go without exercise, but they then start sitting around doing nothing. I left them in their cage over December because I didn't feel like sitting out in the cold with them for an hour and a half. So by the time that early April came around, it was warm enough to bring them back out, but they were just sitting in there doing nothing at that time. So rabbits have made it a long way. Originally, they were just food. Now they have become human test products, and they have also become our pets. So this goes along with my product because my product was to raise and breed healthy rabbits. I did manage to breed a healthy breeding pair and get a healthy litter. I did manage to raise that litter until they were able to be sold and be able to take care of themselves. So my timeline took place starting in August. The reason I started in August was because I already knew what project I wanted to do. So I did research on different rabbit breeds because I didn't want something that everybody has. Almost everybody will have a New Zealand, or you'll see the lion heads or the rabbits with floppy ears. But how often are you going to see a Japanese harlequin? Not very often when people are selling rabbits. So I started on the research as to how much food I can feed them, what food I can feed them, and what kinds of shelters they would need. Then I started looking and seeing if anybody was selling that type of rabbit, and me and my mentor wound up finding an animal auction. Well, at that animal auction, they actually happened to have the Japanese harlequins, a male and female breeding pair. So we were the only people that bid on them, so I wound up getting them for pretty cheap compared to what I would have paid somewhere else. So we didn't have the cages yet, so we took them home in a cardboard box. So the next day we went and we got cages. Well, the first cage took a little longer than expected to build because we didn't have the right tool. So we wound up buying the tool, and then getting the other 2 cages so that we could keep the male and female separate instead of having them breed like rabbits. So we didn't want babies yet because I just was not ready to handle that because I hadn't had the 3rd cage set up. So in September is when we really started constructing the hutch. The reason I had to look into different ways of building the hutch is because everybody has a different way of building it. Some build it to where you can slide the cages in there and it be fine. Some people build the cages into it. So what I decided to do is to make it easier on myself, because at that time my shoulder had been hurt. So I couldn't lift up a hutch that already had cages in it. So we decided to build the hutch out of just extra wood that we had lying around from the barn. And so we wound up doing that. It took, if I remember correctly, 2 full Saturdays to finish the hutch itself. And we wound up making it to have, instead of a flat roof, a slanted roof, so that when it rained or anything, it would go straight off onto the ground. That was also our first breeding attempt. This is also when we learned a really interesting fact about this breed. They have a defense mechanism that makes it to where they are infertile at that point in time if it's too hot. So we learned that the hard way. Is we thought she was pregnant, a month passes, no babies. So we realized, hey, there's something wrong, we need to do research. I did the research and found out that that's what the problem is a defense mechanism. So in October, we gave her a bit of a break, and then middle of October, we tried an attempt 2. This one was more of a success, and in November, about Thanksgiving, she gave birth to 12 baby rabbits. Now, these ones did not make it, unfortunately, because we're assuming her first litter, so she didn't know exactly how to prepare, and she hadn't pulled enough fur for them, so they had no way of staying warm until they were able to produce their own body heat. Which is why we, again, gave her another break, because you don't want to overbreed the rabbits. So early November, or the week after the baby's being born, we went ahead and bred her again. 3 times the charm. Well, they happened to be born about December 29th, and these ones, we were a step ahead. So we wound up taking the box out, and instead of relying on her to put together the nest, we put it together ourselves. So the cotton balls that we used were meant to compensate for the rabbit hair. Just in case she didn't pull enough this time, we used cotton balls and tore them apart. And then we put extra alfalfa and hay into it, and we built it into a burrow. But of course, she had to go in and make alterations to it. So these ones actually wound up being born and being healthy. So overall, I really enjoyed this project just because of being able to raise rabbits and watching them grow from being itty bitty to about the size of both my hands together. So I really enjoyed watching them grow up and be able to be sold. As you can tell right here, this is when one of my females was a little bit bigger, and as you can tell, she's not as old as my female, but she's almost the same size. Well, they mature a lot faster than most animals because they have to be able to defend themselves by a certain age. So they're always on the move, and that's why they mature so fast. Now, I did face a few challenges during this, of course. It was too hot. Like I'd said originally, whenever I first bred her, we found out that it was too hot because of the defense mechanism. That became a huge problem because if I didn't know that, we would have tried again and it probably would have still been too hot. So I'm glad we figured that out. And the problem with the female was, like, if a human gives birth their first time, we don't know everything that's going to happen. We don't know what to expect. But once our second child comes along, if we have one, we know what to expect that time, and we learned from the first one. Well, that's what she did, is she learned from the first one, hey, I have to start pulling my hair out early. I have to actually get this ready for them so that they can have a place that is warm enough to keep them warm and good enough to keep the weather out. Now, as I'd mentioned with the cages, we didn't have the right tool. So when we were building it, there was rings that were supposed to go all the way and hold the cage together. Well, we used pliers, so I had to undo a couple of them because they didn't go around completely because pliers are straight, but the tool that we used after we'd went and bought it was one that curled it around. So that made the job a lot more efficient and a lot faster. I learned a few skills, and those skills were learning how to level things out and making sure that they are built properly. Those are very important things because if you're building something for live animals, you don't want them to be able to knock it over and hurt themselves, because if a hutch is 3 feet off the ground and they manage to tip it over, that can cause one of them to get their leg caught in the cage and hurt it in some way, some form. Now, if it's not built accurately, it'll probably just fall apart depending on how accurately you built it. In conclusion, if somebody goes to a pet store saying that they want an animal, I would highly suggest doing the research before you pick out an animal. That way you know how much work is actually expected in taking care of it, and that way you know exactly how to keep them healthy. Do my judges have any questions? So the second time around, she had 10, but 3 of them wind up getting squished, and so we wind up with 7 in total.
Why rabbits versus dog, cat, iguanas?
Well, see, the breeding for dogs and cats is they don't breed as fast as rabbits do. And most people have a dog or a cat, but rabbits, I mean, I've always enjoyed having rabbits just because of, they're cute and they're fuzzy. I mean,
Do you have a hard time using them for meat then?
No, these ones are actually decently sized. Females can typically get up to, if I remember correctly, 6 or 7 pounds. So it's not bad.
But it doesn't bother you to go from the raising to going ahead
Nope.
and harvesting?
I tried not to get too attached. So it was hard for me with the runt because I was watching it struggle. And, as a person that struggled in life to get to where I am now, I had a hard time watching it struggle with its family. And so that's why I decided to keep it. And so for me, getting attached to the others was kind of a little more difficult because I knew what I was going to do with them. I was fine with that. I knew I wasn't going to keep them, and I knew that they were going to go to somebody else that was probably going to eat them. So.
Are my judges ready? Imagine your child has been diagnosed with a learning disability. Even worse than that, imagine having to send that child to school knowing they're more vulnerable to be bullied. As a parent, you have to accept the fact that how mean kids can be. And even worse than that again, knowing that it does not get any easier as they grow up. Hi, my name is Reese Jones, and I feel everyone should be treated with kindness, no matter if they have a learning disability or not. I got my inspiration from drawings by Trent, as none, or maybe some of, all of you know. This is Trent. He is a 27-year-old male who was diagnosed with classic autism at the age of 2. Trent started drawing everything as soon as he could hold a pen, and he started drawing on all his family's stuff. And finally, when he was older, his parents made him a TikTok account. His parents made him a TikTok account where he blew up, and he started drawing people's requests on TikTok. And I would show you the.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. No, it takes time. So I would show you if I could. But there we go. Okay. 1 in 36 children each year get diagnosed with autism. But what is autism? Some signs and symptoms of autism could be adherence to routine. They don't like physical as well as eye contact, and they kind of just like to be by themselves and put to themselves. There are so many more, and the list can go on, but that is just a few. Main risk factors of autism can be mainly is the mother's health during pregnancy, whether it's a premature birth or there's pollution to the air. And they also have found out that it can be genetic through the genes of the mother and the father to cause autism. The one last thing is researchers and doctors can diagnose a child with autism as early as 16 months. And after they do their tests and all the diagnoses are called, the families, parents, and doctors will find therapies and treatments for the child as they get older. Okay. Oh, I pressed it, sorry. One in 5 students with a learning disability get bullied each year in school as well. On the bullying side of things, bullying can ruin someone's day. It can leave them feeling hopeless with anxiety and depression. Over 160,000 children each year stay home from school due to the fear of being bullied. Suicide rates have also grown through high school specifically. Due to bullying, 14% have been recorded of high school students who have considered suicide. 14% of students have considered suicide in high school, and 7% have attempted due to the bullying in schools. On the other side of things, let's take a look at kindness. The body naturally releases endorphins from the brain that targets a sense of pain when heard kind words, and it heals that pain. And especially when it comes to people suffering with addiction, it really helps to. Kind words have been proven that is one of the main things that helps a person when going through their journey of recovery. Kindness in general makes for a better and happier world for everyone, and it boosts confidence, happiness, and optimism that someone can be something in the future when they are heard kind words and motivation. Keeping motivated through this was sometimes a struggle, but through social media, I have met so many amazing people, and I wanted to just prove the fact that everyone, even if you have a learning disability, can be as capable when you set your mind to anything. So planning out my product, I wanted to include both passions when I started to do this mural. I did a mural for my senior project, and I wanted to include the art side of things. I also wanted to include advocating for learning disabilities, specifically autism. I wanted to reach a younger audience, so I knew I wanted the mural to be in the elementary. That's why I did it in the elementary across from the nurse's office and in the 4th grade hallway. And I wanted it to be visible, but I didn't want it to be a distraction. So I didn't want it to be the first thing you see when you walk in the elementary, because I knew I also wanted to use bright colors. But I did want people to see it, so when you have to go to the nurse's office, it's pretty much a very easy spot to go to. So diving right into my product. I started designing. Me and my mentor, Ms. Callahan, started working every day during lunch and bear time to design our products. When we came up with 2 products that we found on Pinterest that we liked, we mixed them together to kind of just create our own, which is when I began sketching. Every day at bear time, I went down and I sketched, and then through this, it took me about 2 weeks from start to finish to sketch it, but the easiest part came with picking the color palette. Picking the color palette was super simple because I knew exactly the colors that I wanted, the brightness, just stuff that was appealing to the kid's eye. Overall, this was my final product. It took me around 2.5, 3 months from start to finish it. It does have words inside the rainbow. The picture doesn't really do much justice for that. And it also has positive messages in each of the characters standing there. This was a success, but a success does not come without some challenges. One of my challenges was such a big space. I have never been and worked on such a big space like this before. I've normally done just a regular canvas or a poster or like a picture. So working on a big space, it was hard for me to get the sizing of the walls and like the size measurements of everything. Another thing was the walls themselves. The walls are concrete center blocks, which make it really difficult to paint because when you paint over with the paintbrush, you are left with little white spots. And when you're trying to trace it with a Sharpie, you're still left with little white spots. So I ended up having to finger paint pretty much all the walls and just do it by hand, but it ended up managing and I finished it. The last thing, which is probably one of the hardest things, was finding mentor time. During when I did paint this, between snow days and basketball games, I had to try to find time other than those days to do my mural. So it's either real late at night after school or mainly on the weekends that I got to do this mural when my mentor lives in West Plains. So it was extremely hard for her. It was extremely hard for her to find time to come mentor me while I was painting, which made it a struggle because I ended up having to try to pretty much self-teach myself all this stuff. Overall, I feel like people with a learning disability, just like Trent, have proved over and over again how beneficial art can be. If there was less bullying and more kindness spread through the world, no parent would have to fear their child going to school every day, and no child would have to fear being bullied when they go to school. Thank you. Do my judges have any questions?
Were you intentional with your color choices?
Yes.
Just that you like those?
I was pretty intentional with them because a lot of the bottom ones I did want to use like the autism puzzle piece colors throughout it. So that's why I did the people like that, and then the top ones I kind of just liked because I liked the aesthetic of it.
What's some of the words you said?
The ones inside the rainbow are the bear paws. So it says respectful, trustworthy, cooperative, and then each person has like positive messages. So some of them say like you are worthy, make today count, and just like positive stuff like that. Okay.